Greetings, my friends. I am Adamu of the monadic entity of the Pleiadian civilization, coming to you as always through my friend and scribe Zingdad. Today's update is without a doubt the most momentous that I have had the pleasure to deliver to you yet. Truly planet-changing events have just happened, and it's time to let you know about these. They happened some time ago, but our information sources needed to be absolutely sure of what I'm about to share with you. And at the same time, we also needed to be absolutely sure of what we wanted to share and how. As I'm sure you will understand, one cannot release all information everywhere. The wrong ears hearing certain crucial information can be problematic. If this was a newspaper article, there would be a headline, something dramatic, something striking, like, "The ancient red vampire is dead." But of course you wouldn't know who the ancient red vampire is, and you wouldn't know why it's important that he is dead. And so I'm going to in a moment step back again and allow Zingdad to speak, because I have been spending time with him, updating him on all the nitty-gritty details. And it's very important that he speaks to these details from a really human perspective, because some of the background story is troubling, is going to be difficult to hear. Some of it might surprise you. Some of it might seem completely far-fetched. So we're not requiring of you that you should believe anything. We're just inviting you to listen, to hear. Now, if there was a headline, "The ancient red vampire is dead," then the first paragraph would relate that a completely surprise event occurred from a completely unexpected quarter. One of the most troubling and contentious beings that ever resided on planet Earth came to its end. And with the ending of this being's existence on planet Earth, everything changes. The entire game changes. The whole flow of history changes. Friends, entirely new timelines have just opened up. And in the paragraph that follows after that, we would say something about you are being called to action. It's time for you to play your part in the flow of history. It's time for you to begin to decide what future you want for yourself, and that there is information coming on how to do all of this. But as I say, in order to share this information, there's so much background that is required, so much of this background that is so sensitive, that I have asked Zingdad to speak to this on my behalf. So with that, I'm going to take a step back and allow Zingdad to speak to you directly. I am Adamu of the monadic entity of the Pleiadian civilization, coming to you as always through Zingdad. So, Zingdad here. I really didn't want to do this. I've been quite resistant to doing this, to doing what Adamu asked me to do, because as he says, this information that I'm about to share, some of it is really very troubling. But I'm putting all of that aside, and I'm going to try and tell the story as succinctly as I can, and it's a big, big story. And at the end of the story, I have an invitation to you, to everybody watching this, to participate in some very exciting new events, new changes. So where to begin? The ancient red vampire. Now, folks, we're not talking about sexy teenage vampires. You know, those of you who saw the Twilight movies. We're not talking about um, an exciting, good person. What we're talking about here is something truly, truly ancient. And in order to understand this, you really need to understand the whole big picture of our history as humanity. So if you haven't read or followed the updates from Adamu, particularly the one where he spoke about, where he gave the open letter to the Illuminati bloodline families, please update yourself on that. That is on my website. Please know what we're talking about here, because otherwise there's too much for me to tell. But in the briefest of nutshells, way back in what would be our prehistory, there's no historical record. This is a time before our prehistory. Only our myths refer to these times when the gods walked the earth. And all of the pantheons, you know, the Hindu pantheon, the pagan pantheons, the Norse gods, all of these pantheons, all of these mythical stories actually refer to people that many thousands of years ago, beings that were here, and they were actually, I suppose we would call them aliens. They were here with amazing technology, and they were, the earth beings at the time saw them as being supernaturally powerful, and also they had very long lives, so they were seen to be gods. And there came a time when the gods had to leave. Long story, I'm not going to get into all of the details. The gods had to leave, these aliens had to leave. And a quarantine was thrown around the planet. And so they slipped out of our memories and became myths. But before they left, they taught their, I suppose one would call them the high priests, they taught their inner circle of humans all kinds of things. Now some of these ancient gods were beings of very high frequency, very high consciousness. And some of them seemed to be really, truly immortal, because they would use herbal extracts, vegetable juices, divine sexuality, sacred practices to keep their bodies really very vital, very young. They were able to slow the aging process right down and constantly bring more of their own divine essence into these bodies. And so they were beautiful, bright, wise, amazing beings. And then there were other of these gods who were of altogether a lower vibratory frequency. Beings who, in the normal sense like you and I, were mortal, but just had very high technology. And some of them were also of quite a dark energy. I suppose we would almost call them evil. And they would use what they knew to emulate, to be like the bright ones. And they found that there were ways to extend their lives almost indefinitely, but using some very dark practices. They discovered that they could engage negative spirit entities. You might call beings like this, you might call them demons, really malevolent spirit entities. Get them to feed them energy and use dark rituals of abuse and torture of their minions, their human minions, to release pain energy that would feed these demons. And they would, instead of using vegetable juices and herbs, they would use blood sacrifices, blood rituals, and either bathe in or ingest this blood. Really gross, horrible, painful, shocking practices that they used to extend their lives, as I say, almost indefinitely. So there's this light path and there's this dark path. Now the gods of the light path knew that the human beings that were theirs to look after were not ready for this kind of information, and they were not of the high enough frequency to be able to do this, to extend their lives like this. And so when it was time for them to leave, they took their information with them. The gods of the dark path had a different idea. They thought when the quarantine is over, they want to own the planet. And so they taught some of their followers, their earth followers, how to do these things. And when you add this all up, you get somebody, a human being, who has information, resources, the ability to be like a high priest of this dark path, who can extend their life greatly, can live for many hundreds or possibly even thousands of years, by engaging with these dark demonic entities, by engaging with these dark evil rituals, with a network of minions serving to bring innocent lives literally to the slaughter. And that is where these real vampires actually originate. It's not something sexy. It's not what you saw on TV and in the movies. It's really, really gross and evil. So that's what the vampire story is. Now, there also, at the same time, were certain bloodline families that were chosen by certain of these aliens to be the bearer of their knowledge. And these bloodline families were supposed to eventually own the whole planet. And some of them engaged in this kind of vampirism. Some of them didn't. Some of them, just in the way that normal humans do, would have children and would pass on to their children what they knew. So fast forward to today. Now, these bloodline families are hidden completely behind the scenes. If you think you know somebody who's very powerful, know of somebody who's very powerful, CEO of a large multinational corporation, or a president of a country, or people who are powerful, religious people, popes and cardinals and whatever. These people are not truly the power in the world. These people, when necessary, are made to dance by the ones who really have power. They have layers of, they call them hands. The actual power has a layer of hands, a person that knows who it is and passes on their will. And there are these layers that eventually get to the people who have temporal power. It's all very complicated and not worth getting into the nitty-gritty details of it now. What is really important, what you need to understand, is that over time, over the past number of thousands of years, these families have actually been warring with each other for control of the planet. And one particular family was run for the last number of thousands of years by one particular vampire. He's been keeping himself alive for thousands of years, just amassing more and more power, using all kinds of tools and techniques. The world's banking system, they own the money supply. Using the world's military. If there's a nation which they want as a resource and it belongs to another family, to an opposing family, you could declare war with your country that you sort of own. You could declare war. And declaring war is always a good thing, because that country then needs to loan money to finance its war machinery. So they loan money from your banking supply, which makes you more powerful. Then you attack and you take over that country and you make that country have your banking system, and then you own it as a resource. And so the game that they always played was empire building. And we were at a really crucial moment in the world history where one of these families, this one run by this vampire, we're calling it the Red Shield family, pretty much owned Western Europe and North America. That, I suppose, what NATO, the NATO countries, was this being's personal plaything. And this being decided it was powerful enough to wage war on the non-aligned countries, particularly on Russia, and it was lining up for World War III. So now I need to put that story aside and tell you another story, which is very strange and also quite shocking. There are certain beings, once again, I suppose you would consider them demonic beings. I'm told we should call them Marzons. Mars as in the god of war. These spirit entities are utterly disconnected from the divine. They feed on suffering. And when there is war, it's like a all-you-could-eat buffet. They just glut themselves on the suffering. So they love war, and it makes them big and it makes them powerful. And they have a certain kind of intelligence and a certain kind of an ability. And what they've, since time immemorial, they've tried to inflame war. They're able to manipulate minds and get people riled up and get people angry. And they try and play both sides of a conflict and get people really angry so that people really actually want to go to war. They're demons of war, these Marzons. And you can't really engage with them, as a human being. If you try and talk to them, you're in for trouble. You're going to have a very hard time of it. But somehow, and we don't really know how, this vampire engaged them in a contract. He learned how to deal with them and how to contract with them. And in a mutual win-win situation, because he wants war, because he wins power, and so he creates war by on earth by inflaming tensions and by using his manipulative skills, by using the financial power, by using the fact that he is in control of politicians, and he causes war. And then he tells the Marzons, on this day, in this place, from there, that's where the war is going to be. And the Marzons give him power and energy, and they empower those that serve him, and so there was a symbiotic relationship between this vampire and the Marzons. I know this is all a lot of information, a lot to take in, a lot of it's very weird, but there it is. World War III was about to be declared. The Marzons were about to have the feast of their existence, and this vampire was about to break the back of what he considered to be his enemies, and he was well on his way to owning the world, to world dominion through his organization, through his bloodline family. And then a few things started to go wrong. He was quite surprised the way Europe's union started to break. You'll recall the Brexit vote happened. Now, it's not necessarily so that this is a good thing or a bad thing from the human perspective. Maybe you think England needed to stay with Europe because unity is better and one Europe is better, and maybe that is politically. Maybe it's true politically. But there's a layer of behind the scenes story, that the old vampire wanted a unified Europe. He actually wanted to turn Europe into like one block, one country with one army. And he also wanted then to unify Europe and America and make it one tool for his own use. That was his goal. That was his plan. And then Brexit happened, then he was trying to deal with that. And a little while later, there was the elections in America. And he had a very particular plan for how he wanted the elections to flow. Now, again, you might really dislike President Trump. You might have all kinds of negative thoughts about President Trump. And whatever you think, I have no problem. Your thoughts about him are your thoughts. And I have no arguments with whatever your thoughts are. But what I will tell you one thing is that Donald Trump was not what the old vampire wanted for the president of America, because he's many things, but he wasn't going to play ball with this. He was an outsider. He wasn't a part of the system. He was never meant to get voted in as president. He was meant to be a distraction. That's what he was meant to be. He was meant to mess up the votes, and then one of the desired candidates was meant to win. One of those who play the game of this vampire, and none of them knew who they were serving. It just seemed to be that there's this amorphous, they call it the deep state, this amorphous structure of people who have power from behind the scenes, layers of hands before you actually get to the old vampire who hides away, far, far, far away. And so things were heading in the wrong direction. And the old vampire decided it was time to take a hand. It was time to move his plans forward. He decided that if war happened in Europe, civil war happened in Europe with all of these migrants in Europe, if you could inflame there's a certain incompatibility, cultural incompatibility between the belief, the religion of the migrants in Europe and the European residents. There's incompatibility, and you could quite easily inflame these two and cause civil war, cause a raging open battlefield in Europe. And in America, well, you then declare Third World War with Russia. He then believed everything would fall into place. The people of Europe and America would immediately fall into place. Their fear would drive them to choose the way he wanted to choose. He would get the candidates he wanted. He would get a unified Europe. Everything would work for him. But something completely unprecedented and surprising happened. I can't get into the details of it, but an agent of, I don't know, of the light side, who is incarnated upon planet Earth, planted what I could only understand is a psychic trap. This person didn't quite understand even what they were doing. They were just appalled at what was going on in the world, and they had an ability to plant a psychic trap that the vampire stepped into. And precisely because this vampire is actually undead, I mean, literally undead, the body is dead. It's being artificially kept alive by these dark practices and by demonic influence. So that psychic trap, when it snapped shut, this vampire went into a coma. And it snapped shut at the moment the vampire issued the order. When the thought went through his brain, World War III, let's do it. Just as he was about to issue that order, it caused the psychic trap to snap shut. The details of exactly how this all works is a bit beyond me, but what's important is that the vampire went into a coma, a psychic shock. And not long thereafter, I mean, he was undead. I don't suppose you could say he died, but finally was unable to maintain his contact with his body and left this earth, and is now in the spiritual realms and has his own world of pain to deal with from there. But friends, I've been rushing through the story to get to this place, to relate to you that this changes absolutely everything. This ultimate puppet master that has been running the show from behind the scenes for thousands of years, that has been moving towards controlling the world, is dead. Though he belonged to a particular bloodline family, he didn't, he was thousands of years old. He didn't trust anybody. There were no friends, there were no great loves in this being's life. He didn't trust anybody. He truly believed that if he passed on all of his knowledge, if he passed on how to do what he does, how to keep himself alive for thousands of years, and how to contain and control the Marzons and all of this other information, he believed if he passed it on to another being, that other being would kill him. And they probably would, because then they don't need him. So he kept himself indispensable by being the only one who knew how to do these things. Which means when he died, there wasn't a natural heir. He thought he would live forever. He thought he was going to be the empire of the world. There wasn't a natural heir, and there wasn't the knowledge of how to do what he does, which meant his family schismed. He'd also taken some of the other 13 families and kind of just pulled them into his family and made them serve him as well. So there's these schisms. The whole structure collapsed in on itself. And you can actually see that if you look carefully, if you see what's going on in the world of politics, if you really looking at and trying to look at what's going on behind the scenes, you can see there's a real internal battle for control of government, for control of resources, and it's going on definitely in America. Look at this vitriolic left-right struggle, and also the left isn't united and the right isn't united. There's a lot of chaos going on behind the scenes. The deep state is in a state of chaos. Europe doesn't know which direction it's going, and this confluence that was happening is fragmenting. Because the deep state is no longer all unified behind one purpose, one direction, one master. And suddenly the Marzons are let loose. Now you might notice, whatever your political affiliation is, and I don't think it's really important. Political affiliation is like, what's your favorite flavor? Do you like chocolate? Do you like vanilla? It's just, it's where you are in your life. I don't think it's actually important. But you might have noticed, whatever your political affiliation is, the people on the other side seem to have gone nuts, haven't they? I mean, people are just going crazy, becoming really extremist, and even if you're not political affiliation, whatever. I mean, there's racial tensions, religious tensions, and it's everywhere. It's like the world is just heating up and going insane. And there's a reason for this. The Marzons have lost their direction. They don't know where to go anymore. And they are just stinging every open nerve that they can find. They are making everyone angry that they can make angry. They're causing every division that they can cause, because they don't know how to do what the old vampire would have done. They don't know how to cause this Third World War that they were salivating over. So they're just doing everything that they can. But the problem for them is that they don't have their own innate divine energy source. They're using their energy reserves to trigger this stuff. And it's costing them. And so if the Third World War doesn't happen, they start to lose energy. They start to, I suppose, deflate. They get smaller and weaker and smaller and weaker. And they return to a state that they should have been, had it not been for this vampire causing them to be fed so egregiously, which is small, petty little energies that cause small, petty little discomforts. And there actually is an ancient purpose for them. They actually are meant to mop up pain energy. Fear, pain, frustration, anger. They're meant to mop it up, not meant to instigate it, not meant to be agents of war. Things have gone completely out of control. So here we are now. almost can't believe this crazy update that I'm delivering to you. But here we are now. Here we are in this state where suddenly what was happening, the inevitability of what was happening isn't happening. All of the plans that I suppose one would say the agents of the light, the galactics, all of these plans to deal with this vampire, all of these things fall aside. And we're sort of, okay, now what? And there are these Marzons creating all this chaos. So now what? Really what we need to do is just weather the storm, because really we can, a new age can now actually begin. We need to weather the storm, and we need to not allow a third world war, obviously, to happen. So what I am going to be doing is I'm going to be teaching people how to heal their own psyches, how to heal themselves. This is what I can do. I'm not saying you have to be on this journey with me, but I'm inviting you to be on this journey with me. I'm going to be teaching people how to heal their own psyches. Because if your psyche is not healed, you can't be helping others. You can't be helping the planetary situation. If you have wounds in your consciousness, unhealed stuff, those places are where you are susceptible to being triggered by entities like the Marzons. That's where you find yourself being egregiously outraged by what's going on in the world. Either you're, read what President Trump has just tweeted and it makes you roar with anger, or if you, like President Trump, you see something that the left is doing and they're snowflakes and they're crazy and we need to fight against them. Or if your possible trigger is racism, you're just noticing all this racism out there and it's making you outraged, or whatever the trigger that's available to you is being triggered, and it's making you angry, and it makes you hate people and makes you want to kill those people on that side. And if somebody says war, you're more ready for this than otherwise would ever be possible. So you need to heal yourself first. Now I've been doing a healing modality. I've been helping people and healing people as my gift, as what I do here on earth. And I've been called more recently to teach people how to do this, to teach people how to heal themselves, to teach people how to heal each other. So that's what I can do. I can help people to heal themselves and to heal each other, so that we become ever less susceptible. And then also, I've just yesterday been given an update from Adamu on what we can actually directly do about these Marzons. There's a technique that we can apply. You create a particular circle and you expand the circle, and it causes protection. The Marzons are disabled, are unable to act inside that circle. And to go around the planet and do this, to create these circles, I need collaborators. I need people who want to work with me on this. So I'm very much hoping to be able to do this, to get around the planet, to get to people where they are, to teach them how to heal themselves, and to help them create these circles. Now, there are no coincidences. I'm going to be coming to the United States in September. Depending on when you're watching this, it's just a few weeks away from me now. So if you're watching this shortly after I made it, September 2018, I'm going to be in Hawaii, and I also want to spend a little bit of time in other parts of the States. I'm hoping I can connect with some of you, and I'm hoping I can teach what I have to teach. So I had already planned this event. I'm still going to be teaching how to do soul reintegration. That's how to heal your soul. And as a part of the course, I will also be creating one of these Marzon-free zones, this dome of safe healing space. And perhaps it's possible, I don't know, perhaps it'll be possible for me to catch up with some of you in Los Angeles. I'm going to be also in LA, and I'm also going to be in New York for a few days. I don't know what I can do at such short notice. But nonetheless, after that, I'm going to be going to Europe next year, and then we'll see where I go. You don't have to do this with me, but really I invite you right now to engage with your own healing practice, to become conscious of where you are being triggered, and to be an agent of love in this time. Things are changing fast. The window of opportunity to new timelines is opening, and it's up to us to step into those timelines. There will be following updates. I'll be obviously talking more about this and sharing more. Adamu will probably be speaking as well more directly in future. So stay tuned. My invitation to you is to sign up for my free newsletter if you haven't already. I'll put the URL on the on this video. Sign up for my free newsletter. I will let you know when there's updates in this regard. My invitation is to be a part of this. I'll share as much information as I can. I'll show you what I can, and I'm sure there are other healers on planet Earth who are going to be picking up on this and sharing what they can. It's time. You've heard about the love revolution. Well, you know, I think it is time for us to be the change that we've always desired, for us to be leading the charge towards love and oneness and connection and wholeness, because the greatest impediment to that has now been removed. So there we go. That wasn't so difficult. If you have questions or comments, please come and visit my website where this is posted. Please leave your comments so that I can know where you're at with this and what information you need going forward, so I can engage you in that conversation with future updates. Until next time, I love you all. This is Zing Dad. Goodbye.